Hi everyone, this is Karen Smiley. Welcome to Agile Analytics and Beyond on Substack. Baseball, bicycles, and crosswalks. Better analogies and graphics for equality versus equity. This post covers differences between equality and equity and how the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation used feedback and data on the equality versus equity analogy and graphic to improve on it twice. A LinkedIn post by Raven Solomon a few months ago gave a great explanation and visual on the differences between equality and equity. On the equality side, one characteristic is uniformity. Equality focuses on treating everyone the same regardless of their individual needs or circumstances. A second characteristic is that it's one size. Equality assumes providing the same resources or opportunities to everyone will lead to fairer outcomes. Number 3, limited impact. Equality measures may not effectively address systemic barriers. Equal treatment alone may not lead to meaningful change. And number 4, potential exclusion. Equality measures can further marginalize already disadvantaged groups by ignoring their unique needs. On the equity side, a characteristic is tailored support. Equity acknowledges that individuals start from different positions and may require varying levels of support to reach the same potential access to outcomes. A second characteristic of equity is that it's systemic. Equity tackles systemic barriers like discrimination, poverty, and resource access to promote fairness and inclusivity through structural changes. Number 3, it's long-term. Equity initiatives create lasting impact by addressing underlying disparities and fostering sustainable solutions. Number 4, agency. Equity empowers individuals by recognizing their agency and providing opportunities for active participation in decision-making processes. The full diagram is from Raven Solomon Enterprises. It's available in the Substack post, and you can click through there to Raven Solomon's website for more information. Some working definitions from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Equality. Everyone gets the same, regardless if it's needed or right for them. Equity. Everyone gets what they need, understanding the barriers, circumstances, and conditions. Side-by-side graphics are commonly used to illustrate the difference between equality and equity. Here's a quick look at how these graphics have evolved and improved over time and why I love the latest one. Version 1, baseball games and boxes. One analogy that has circulated for years shows 3 people of different heights trying to see a baseball game over a fence. Description: one person is taller than the fence and doesn't have an impaired view. The second person is at eye level with the fence and can't see the whole field. The third person can't see the game at all. The fence completely blocks their view. The equality view shows giving each person one box to stand on. This helps the second person, but is unnecessary for the first person, and it still leaves the third person unable to see over the fence. In the equity view, each person has been given 0, 1, or 2 boxes to stand on, and now all 3 can see the game over the fence. There are many variations of this image. In one alternate version, a third justice view shows that the fence has been removed or no longer blocks viewing, so no boxes are needed and everyone can see. The article includes an example of the 3-pane baseball graphic showing equality, equity, and justice. Version 2, bicycles. In 2017, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation came up with a better illustration based on bicycles. Description: the graphic shows 4 people who want to ride a bike. For the equality side, everyone is given the same standard bike, but the wheelchair user can't use that bike at all. The tall person is uncomfortably hunched over and their knees bump the handlebars because the bike's too small for them. Someone would have had to boost the child onto the bike because the crossbar is too high, and the child can't sit on the seat and still have their feet reach the pedals. The standard bike only works for 1 of the 4 people. In the equity view, each person has a bike that fits them. The wheelchair user has a recumbent bike with hand controls, not requiring foot power. The tall person has a big bike that they don't have to hunch over. The child has a small bike that is the right size for them. Everyone can ride. To their credit, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation sought feedback on how to improve the new bicycle analogy. They came out with not 1 but 2 new and improved graphics in November 2022. So version 3A, bicycles and terrain. In the first new graphic, they improved the bicycle analogy to show differences in terrain for 3 people. The equality view shows a child on bumpy terrain with a standard bike that's taller than they are. It's impossible for them to even get on it. A person with a standard bike in flat pavement is able to ride. A wheelchair user needing to go up a ramp can't use the standard bike at all. The equity view shows that the child who is riding over bumpy terrain gets a small mountain-style bike with bigger tires. The person riding on flat pavement gets a standard road bike their size, and it works for them. And the right equipment for the wheelchair user isn't a bike at all, but a power chair that can safely go up the ramp. Everyone can get to where they need to go. Version 3B, crosswalks and curb cuts. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation also came up with a completely different analogy. Instead of a baseball game or bicycles, it shows people at a crosswalk. In the original view, it shows that the street curb is high, and there is a sign at the intersection to let sighted people know where to cross. One person easily manages to step off the sidewalk curb to the street level. The curb is clearly too high for a child's shorter legs. The child is shown jumping down to the street. The tall curb prevents a wheelchair user and a blind person with a cane from safely accessing the street to cross, and none of the people can easily tell when it's safe to cross. In the equity view, the street curb and crosswalk are reshaped. A curb cut and a ramp with ridges have been added. These help the wheelchair user and the blind person safely reach street level. The child can now get to street level without jumping, and the ramp works well for the taller person too. In addition to the static crosswalk sign, the intersection now has 1. Lighted indicators to show when it's safe to walk and when not to start, and 2. A speaker which sounds when it's safe to cross and stops when it isn't. I love this last new analogy and graphic. Not only does this new intersection design help the 4 people pictured, removing the systemic barriers will help others not shown. Examples: people pushing strollers, using a rolling walker, or walking dogs. The changes to the crosswalk system make the street accessible to everyone without special equipment. One downside might be that the crosswalk sound could be disturbing for people with auditory sensitivities, though. I also love that the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation solicited input from a diverse group of people, gathered data, and used it to guide their improvement iterations. That is true little a agile behavior at its finest. What do you think? Take a look at the article and see if you think the graphics could be further improved. What's next? With equality, equity, and DEI initiatives, it's important to keep in mind that the real goal is to be fair to everyone, and that the focus is fixing the system, not fixing the people. The people aren't broken or deficient. The system that creates the barriers for people to varying degrees is what needs fixed. I've had requests for future articles that share personal stories of how inequity has caused real harms to real people and how changes to the systems were the best solutions. I'm giving some thought to which of my own inequity stories I might be willing to share. I know many people who have experienced inequitable situations at work or elsewhere. In fact, I probably know more people who have than people who haven't. If you have, and you would be comfortable sharing in a guest post in this newsletter section, or if you already have an article on this topic that could be cross-posted, please message me. As credits, this article was inspired by a LinkedIn post by Paul Ladipo about the newest graphics from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I learned so much from following Paul. The infographic on equality versus equity is by Raven Solomon Enterprises and used with permission. Her insights and perspectives add value to my life, and I highly recommend following Raven. All Robert Wood Johnson Foundation images are shared in accordance with their terms of use and linked to the original images if a larger view is needed. And thank you to Catherine Lewis and Rose G for their kind feedback on drafts of this article.